hey, life can change in an instant, and that can feel especially true in the holiday and winter months. One moment everything feels normal, and the next someone else's mistake turns your world upside down. That's why you need a team you can count on. NACE Law Group has been standing up for DC families for decades, fighting for neighbors hurt by medical malpractice, wrongful deaths, and serious injuries. They don't just settle quickly or push papers. They dig in, fight hard, and make sure every client gets the justice they deserve. And here's something we love. They're a longtime supporter of CityCast because just like us, they care about this community and the people who call it home. So if you or someone you care about has been hurt this season, don't wait. Call NACE Law Group. They'll stand with you, fight for your family, and make sure your rights are protected so you can focus on what matters most. Visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. That's WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. Today on CityCast DC. So for a lot of people in DC, the name St. Elizabeth's still conjures the likes of John Hinckley, the guy who shot Ronald Reagan and got off on the insanity defense. But the sprawling campus that housed what used to be known as an insane asylum has actually transformed a lot over the past 2 decades. The hospital's footprint has shrunk and a whole lot of new stuff has come in. There's a cabinet department over there, there's a basketball arena, and there's quite a lot of pretty looking housing. And according to the Washington Business Journal's Michael Neibauer, a lot more is on the way. Here's what you need to know. Today is Thursday, December 4th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
I'm glad to see you.
Oh, it is a pleasure to join you once again.
All right, so listen, I hate to be like a geography know-it-all and assume everyone else is a dork about this too. But so for folks who don't know, where is the St. Elizabeth's campus?
Well, the St. Elizabeth's campus is in Ward 8. It is along, the main drag would be Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, southeast.
East of the Anacostia River.
East of the Anacostia River. If you've ever been to the entertainment and sports arena, now the Care First Arena, that is on the St. Elizabeth's East campus. St. Elizabeth's overlooks downtown Washington. There are some of the best views in the city are from that area, especially from the West Campus, which you can't really get on because it's the headquarters of the Department of Homeland Security. But it is a beautiful site. It is right at the Congress Heights Metro Station. You know, that is the anchor of St. Elizabeth's. It is a place that, you know, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King kind of merged there. And
the streets, not the people.
I don't know if they ever met there, but no, we're talking about the streets. It is a highly trafficked, high profile location that's getting a lot of attention.
All right, so let's back up, because for people who haven't been paying attention, a lot of their thoughts when they hear St. Elizabeth's involve like Ezra Pound or John Hinckley, and generally the idea of mentally ill people being stashed away in some sort of Dickensian, hideaway. Is it still a mental hospital? Because I keep hearing about, things on the campus. So can you explain how we got from famous mental hospital to what it is now?
Sure. A historic campus. St. Elizabeth's, it was not originally called St. Elizabeth's. It was originally called the Government Hospital for the Insane, and it dates back to the 1850s. And it served as war hospitals. It served all of those uses, eventually became known for the mental hospital there. But it started losing its luster, especially as that type of care really was pretty heavily criticized for the type of care.
So this was like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of stuff,
and worse. It got really bad, and eventually, it pretty much it got to the point where the federal government didn't really want to operate it anymore, and they moved it along. And is there still a hospital there? Yes, it is a new hospital. It is and when I say new, I mean in the last 15 years.
Okay.
There is a new psychiatric hospital on the campus, still called the St. Elizabeth's Hospital, but it is nothing like what you knew back in the days of Hinckley and long before then. when it really started kind of falling apart.
So they built a new facility. It's still got inpatients, but it is not this sort of sprawling campus of psychiatric hospital that it once was.
Correct. I mean, St. Elizabeth's, the campus, is about 360 acres.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrible at math, but I believe that's 180 times 2. And there was a point when it was decided that the district would keep the east side,
mm-hmm.
and the federal government, the GSA, would keep the west side. And one of the first things that was developed there was the Unified Communication Center. Most people don't think of that as St. Elizabeth's, but it is.
So basically, this historically, Congress Heights and across the river and Southeast has been one of the most underdeveloped parts of the city economically. And they had this sort of hospital that was moving out of style. The feds and the city decided, let's create some new, possibly economically productive uses here.
Yes.
On the feds side, the first big thing, I think, was the Homeland Security Department, which was created about 20 years ago. It eventually moved out there.
So the Department of Homeland Security headquarters was a result of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what created the Department of Homeland Security. The new building to open there was the Coast Guard headquarters. So the Coast Guard used to be headquartered at Buzzard Point. The Coast Guard moved to a $1 billion building on the St. Elizabeth West campus. And that opened up, of course, the Buzzard Point building to be redeveloped. So that, that helped that part of the city. And then, there was this effort, and it has been delayed and it has struggled to get going, but to eventually consolidate the Department of Homeland Security, the administration in the historic, mostly the historic buildings on the St. Elizabeth's West campus, like the Center building, which was restored to house the administration of DHS. And currently they're building a new headquarters for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration.
So the idea when they first pitched this was, look, we've got this part of town, not a lot of resources, not much economic activity. We'll move in all these workers from DHS, Coast Guard, et cetera. They will, in turn, go out to lunch or run errands or get their dry cleaning done or whatever, and that will help people who want to start that kind of business. And those businesses will, in turn, be a nice thing for the residents who happen to live nearby. Did that actually happen?
No, not at all. Because the DHS employees, the Coast Guard employees who were there had their own cafeterias and so on. They did not cross. There's actually a connection that goes under MLK that connects St. Elizabeth West and East. And people really didn't use it. A few people did, but for the most part, it really, you haven't seen the East-West connection that I think was the dream 20 years ago.
Mm.
However, I mean, it's not to say the employees who work on St. Elizabeth, St. East, I'm just going to say St. East because it's so much easier than St. Elizabeth's.
And just for the record, everybody, just so the grammarians out there know, I have gotten a correction on this. I'm sure you have gotten a correction on this. Most journalists have. It's St. Elizabeth's, no apostrophe, no possessive. It's just like a plural of Elizabeth. I don't understand why or know why, but just do yourself a favor. Remember that, or else you too will be a journalist who has a correction on their record.
When they named it, they removed the possessive. And I mean, I've been covering St. E's for 20 years, so I probably had that drilled into me 20 years ago. And now I don't think of, it's like Bailey's Crossroads in Northern Virginia, also no apostrophe. I have no idea why. But again, that was the dream 20 years ago, was to have this great connection while the district was pursuing new development at St. E's East, which is another 180 acres.
So DC got that side. What did they want to put there?
Everything and anything they could think of. Originally, the idea was that that DHS would be so overbuilt on the St. E's West campus that some would have to be moved over to St. E's East. That didn't happen, but it started with the UCC, the Unified Communication Center. It continued with the new St. Elizabeth's Hospital and new homes that were carved out of historic buildings on the St. E's campus. So you had like 90 homes. These were this was the initial work after the district spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build the infrastructure there. because you have to remember there was nothing there but a hospital. It was not built at all. There were no roads, the water, the power, none of that was in place for a new community to sprout.
So since then, about how many residents have lived there now?
I mean, probably several hundred at this point, if not more. Between the what they call the district towns, the townhomes, the residents at St. Elizabeth's, which are the apartments. That's pretty much what's up at this point. But there are big plans. I was thinking before we talked about the difference between like a wharf, right, which just kind of sprung up, and it was the same kind of situation where there was nothing really there. I mean, everything just got torn down, on the Southwest waterfront. Here they were really starting from scratch, and it requires a lot of public investment. They've picked partners, but it's huge. And so I wonder if people are going, well, what's taking so long when 180 acres is it's going to be parceled out. It's going to be done piecemeal, and it's going to take decades to build it up. And there's still so much to come if you look at what's built. But now you have the new hospital. There's just so much going on there.
One of DC's most popular holiday traditions returns with an all-new edition. Come join the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. as they ring in the season with The Holiday Show. This year, the holiday extravaganza is bigger than ever with new soulful arrangements of your favorite holiday carols. The reindeer will be high-kicking and the snowflakes will sparkle. Songs include Oh Holy Night, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Let It Snow, We Wish You the Merriest, and Go Tell It on the Mountain. The Holiday Show, December 13th, 14th, and 20th, only at Lincoln Theater. These shows always sell out, so get your tickets soon. ASL tickets and groups of 10 or more, call 202-293-1548. Get your tickets at gmcw.org. That's gmcw.org.
Stories matter at St. Anne's Center, where mothers and children can overcome homelessness and write hopeful new futures. Founded in D.C. in 1860 and chartered by President Lincoln, St. Anne's Center continues to help women and their children today, 165 years on. Now, we invite you for a one-of-a-kind look inside our mission. Visit stanns.org/CityCastDC to watch In Her Words, an exclusive short film highlighting 4 women currently journeying through St. Anne's Center. This 6-minute film explores motherhood, homelessness, and hope through the eyes of the women living the journey. Hear their stories in their words. You can also learn how to support St. Anne's by advocating, donating, or volunteering for the mission. Make a difference this Homelessness Awareness Month. Visit stanns.org/CityCastDC.
So one of the things that was built, opened maybe, 10 years ago, maybe a little less, was a stadium. It was the place where the G League team, the Go-Go, were going to play, and the Mystics, and it has concerts and so on. I remember going, taking a tour. Leonsis gave me a tour there, and where it's like half under construction, and the kind of disused old hospital dorms, or I don't know what the right term is, were looking like extra spooky. And I remember that at some point there was an idea like, we'll create like a dormitory for some of these young G League players. And it seemed like, my God, this is like a scene from a horror movie. They've got them like locked in an old asylum. So how does that stadium work now? What kind of crowds do they draw? Are they? I know they've talked about leaving it and going closer to the arena.
So it's still where the Mystics play most of their games. When they play bigger games, they'll play, like if Caitlin Clark comes to town and she's actually playing, they might move to Capital One Arena. But it is still the home of the Mystics. I believe it is still the home of the Wizards G League team. And it's still a draw. I was there last season. And they built a parking garage, which, some people probably might say, why would you build a parking garage? Well, because people expect the parking to be available there, right. Even though you can metro there, and a lot of people do. And it is still a draw. And as part of the Capital One agreement that Monumental Sports and Entertainment, in order to get $515 million from the district to renovate Capital One Arena, part of that deal was Monumental would maintain their teams at the Care First Arena. So it will continue to have audiences going forward.
How did Ted Leonsis and Monumental wind up there? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that part of town and even the name St. Elizabeth's had attached to it wrongly, such a bad reputation. That the kind of thing that like someone who depends on like people driving in from the suburbs and buying tickets might be scared of.
You know what? I've been to so many events. I don't know if it was the specific announcer. I remember like a pep rally there with Sheila Johnson, a minority owner of Monumental, and Bradley Beal and John Wall when they were both playing for the Wizards, and they were the future. And people were really excited. I mean, it's where the Wizards were going to practice. They needed a dedicated practice facility. And the district put up a good amount of the money for it. Events DC owns it. And Monumental put up a little. And I think Ted Leonsis genuinely cares about the city, and he wanted to support a part of the city that didn't get the investment that it should. And I think that's how they ended up there. Now, the problem is they outgrew it to a degree, and that became an issue. So that's why they've made room for like the Mystics at Capital One, or even in Baltimore, when they play bigger games. But I think that's how, and the district sweetened the pot, certainly, and made it a good deal for Monumental to want to be there.
So listen, now move on to future. I mean, as you said, there's so much more that is planned for this space. What's the goal, and who's putting what there?
So, the big news this year was the opening of the new hospital, not St. Elizabeth's, but the new Cedar Hill, full service hospital. And it is slow to rise in terms of its use, but eventually that should grow to become an anchor there. And you've also got the Whitman Walker Robinson Center there. And Whitman Walker is headquartered at St. Elizabeth's.
We can explain what Whitman Walker is for people who don't know.
Sorry, Whitman Walker is a health system that provides services for low income and, of course, LGBTQ, the community. It's been serving the district for decades through the AIDS crisis. And so they are headquartered there. You have the Sycamore and Oak facility, this beautiful retail pavilion that was built, and that's technically temporary. It's modular. You can take it down with the idea that that's going to be replaced with a big mixed-use development. There is parcel 7, 8, and 9, which fronts Martin Luther King. That is actually the subject of a bill before the DC Council now to give that property to, or sell that property. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out, but to a development team that was chosen 3 years ago to build a new headquarters for the Department of Behavioral Health, DC, plus apartments, plus affordable apartments, townhomes, and more retail. You've got another, Dantes Partners has a deal to build apartments over retail at St. Elizabeth. So there is still so much to come, and you're talking about another decade or two before it all delivers.
As you said, the city has put in millions and millions and millions of dollars of investment. Has it led to improvements for the neighbors and for the neighborhood and for the actual neighbors who live there?
I have been there, and I've seen the neighbors there, and I've seen the neighbors enjoying the amenities there. I mean, it's, at the very least, you cannot argue that it's not better than it was.
Right. Is it possible to trace impact on like violent crime nearby, or like litter? I don't know. I mean, just like thinking of all the sort of emblems of ill health.
The campus is beautiful. I don't know how that's impact off the campus. It's not a fenced in campus anymore. You can just wander on, and it's beautiful, when it's working. But there's still a lot to come. And, it's a real challenge to build up something out of nothing, especially in an area that deserved it, but hadn't gotten anything like it before. So You can't rush things like that. They take time. There will be ups, there will be downs, and there will be pauses through, economic downtimes. Suddenly the district doesn't have the money to put in, or the banks don't have the money to finance the private development.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these things take so long.
So what's the end game? In the sort of fervent imagination of the city planners who've been pushing this over these decades, what do they imagine the east side of the river looks like when you look forward 20 or 30 years?
I don't want to say they want it to look like the west side, because I don't think they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think they want it. They want St. Elizabeth's to be an anchor to drive, a new community, and to provide the optimism that the people who live in and near there have always said, we're not getting what they get over there. Well, this is a sign that we can, and we can be something great. There's going to be a public library at St. Elizabeth's right off the metro. And as St. Elizabeth's grows, more developers will want to come in, and that breeds a whole another set of challenges, right? You start getting into gentrification arguments. As developers will want to come in and build near it. And that's how things start changing off the campus. It's that critical mass.
Do you have any sense of whether, there are thousands of employees over there now, the Coast Guard, Homeland Security, et cetera. Do you have a sense of whether any of them live nearby? It would be a really nice, easy commute. There's pretty new townhouses they're selling. Is that happening?
I don't know for sure, but probably. Why wouldn't there be? There are new apartments. There are new townhomes. There are new single-family homes east of the river with a pretty easy straight shot to St. Elizabeth's. And why wouldn't you want to live there? Obviously traffic's bad on 295, getting to, Malcolm X, where you might make a right and head that way. And why wouldn't you want that opportunity for a, fairly affordable real estate as compared to what you would find elsewhere?
Mike, thank you so much for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? You can also rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.